Okay. So, the first image was of a rocket, right? And in order to propel a rocket into space, we need a lot of energy. Okay. So, that was the first point. The second was now this is a nucleus. Okay. Now, he is explaining the binding energy of the nucleus. Okay. So, a nucleus is a combination of particles. So, it is showing it is not a perfect sphere, right, it is just a combination of particles held together. Now, when you separate the nucleus into different parts, then you need an amount of energy which is equal to the binding energy. Okay. What are these parts? These parts are protons and neutrons, and as the protons and neutrons are separated, you will see that each proton and neutron itself is composed of a number of small particles which are called proton, and neutron are a combination of quarks. Okay. So, these small particles inside each proton and neutron are the quarks. So, protons and neutrons are collectively known as nucleons. Now, you know that one of the very important concepts that we have in physics are forces, right. So, what are the kind of forces? In this case, for example, EM stands for electromagnetic force and S stands for the strong force. So, these are the forces that are responsible for the holding together of the nucleons inside the nucleus. Okay. So, we know that electromagnetic force takes place whenever there is a charged particle, and the strong force is a force that is particular to the nucleons. So, the force that is holding the protons and neutrons together is the strong force, right. But the strong force is a very strong force as compared to the electromagnetic force, and that is why they stay together. Okay. Towards when you bring the nucleons together, the strong force is the dominant force, the electromagnetic force is a weak force because there is a repulsion, right. But when you take them further apart, the strong force becomes weaker as we go away from the center of the nucleus, and the electromagnetic force becomes stronger. Okay. So, there we can discuss how we have these nucleons in different elements of the periodic table, and this is the graph that I was talking about. You have this graph in your book as well on page number 67. So, you can see on this graph along the x axis you have the number of nucleons in the nucleus. So, every element in the periodic table has a certain number of nucleons. Along the y axis you have this average binding energy per nucleon. Okay. So, this is the binding energy divided by the number of nucleons, and this is in the unit for this is mega electron volts. So, this means it is a huge amount of energy. Also, if you pay attention, you see the elements, these are the low Z elements, the elements with small nuclei with a smaller number of nucleons. So, the smallest one is hydrogen 1, right. Okay. And then you have hydrogen 2. What is hydrogen 2? Deuterium, right. It is an isotope of hydrogen. And then you have helium, right. You have helium 3, you can have helium 4. Then you have lithium, right. Lithium also have isotopes like lithium 6, lithium 7, and then you have carbon, oxygen. So, these are the light elements. then you reach iron here, you see this curve is increasing as you go here and then it starts decreasing. Okay. So, this is something important and has to be understood, and you will see that the heavy elements are here. Heavy elements example like uranium. Uranium is a heavy element. You have the isotopes of uranium 238 and 235. So, the number of nucleons is very large. So, you can see that the behavior of the binding energy is different here in the smaller nuclei and it is different in the larger nuclei. That is why every nucleus cannot produce fission energy. Some nuclei are suitable for fission energy and some nuclei are important for fusion energy. So, for fission energy normally it is the heavy nuclei and for the fusion energy it is the small nuclei. Okay. Yes, you can relate this to the formula per nucleon, the binding energy. There are many factors actually. Every uranium will not produce fission. It is only a particular isotope which is U-235 which will produce. All isotopes are not radioactive, okay, and all isotopes do not produce. So, there is a lot of physics, there is a lot of science behind this. Binding energy is one of the factors, there are other factors as well, right. Okay, so, right now we are only explaining the binding energy, okay. So, you see one part of the graph is in red color and the second part of the graph is in blue color as you are going towards the heavier nuclei. Okay. So, as the number of nucleons increase, the nuclei become more unstable because the repulsive forces become stronger, right. So, there are many types of reactions that can take place. Okay. For example, you may have particles leaving the nucleus, you can have a neutron changing to a proton and so on and so forth. Or you can have some radiation being produced. We will study nuclear reactions later on. So, there are many types of different kinds of nuclear reactions that take place during the fission process as well. It is not only the energy that is produced, there are also radiations and particles being produced in the process. So, this is fission when they split into two or more, right. Okay. This is fission, right. So, fission is a decay process. So, decay is another thing that we will be studying. Decay is a kind of a reaction, right. Okay. Achha, I think we can stop here because we'll start again and you can